For decades, Circuit City was where America shopped for technology. Your first DVD player, your gaming console, that massive TV for the Super Bowl. Walk into any Circuit City and you'd find expert salespeople who actually knew their stuff. People who could guide you through every technical detail and make sure you walked out with exactly what you needed. By 2006, they were America's second largest electronics retailer, with 40,000 employees and stores in every major city. In March 2007, Circuit City made a decision that would become one of the most catastrophic moves in retail history. They fired 3,400 of their most experienced salespeople. Not for poor performance, not for misconduct, but because they earned too much money. These weren't just employees, they were the backbone of the company. Experts who had spent decades mastering every product specification. People who could explain the difference between plasma and LCD when customers didn't even know what those words meant. 6 months later, Circuit City reported devastating losses. 18 months later, they filed for bankruptcy, closing 567 stores and eliminating 34,000 jobs. This is the story of how America's second largest electronics retailer destroyed itself from the inside out. The story begins with Samuel Wurtzel, a businessman who saw the future of American retail before anyone else. In 1949, Wurtzel opened a small television store in Richmond, Virginia called Ward's TV. But he understood something others didn't. He realized that electronics weren't luxury items anymore, they were becoming necessities, and Americans needed a place to buy them. By 1965, he rebranded his stores as Circuit City and pioneered the big box electronics format. Massive showrooms, huge inventory, and most importantly, knowledgeable salespeople who could explain complex technology to everyday customers. But here's what made Circuit City different. They ran their stores like car dealerships. Salespeople worked on commission. If you sold more, you earned more. A senior Circuit City salesperson could make $50,000 to $60,000 a year, serious money in retail. This wasn't just a job, it was a career. And it worked. Because in the 1980s and 1990s, buying electronics was complicated. There was no internet, no Amazon reviews, no YouTube unboxing videos. If you wanted to buy a VHS player, you had to walk into a store and trust someone to explain the difference between VHS and Betamax. If you wanted a home theater system, you needed an expert to explain surround sound, receiver compatibility, and speaker placement. Circuit City's commissioned salespeople became trusted advisors. Customers would come back year after year asking for the same salesperson who helped them before. That relationship drove loyalty, and loyalty drove profits. The strategy worked spectacularly. Circuit City went public in 1984 and became the template every electronics retailer copied. Best Buy studied Circuit City. CompUSA studied Circuit City. Even Walmart's electronics section was influenced by Circuit City's layout. By the 1990s, Circuit City was unstoppable. And then they did something wild. In 1991, an electronics retailer that sold TVs and stereos decided to open used car dealerships. Circuit City launched CarMax, applying big box retail principles to used cars with no haggle pricing and massive selection. CarMax exploded. By 2002, it was generating over $3 billion in revenue and became so successful that Circuit City spun it off as a separate company, unlocking over $1.2 billion in shareholder value. An electronics store accidentally created one of America's most successful car retailers. But Circuit City wasn't done experimenting. In 1998, they launched their next big bet, DivX, Digital Video Express. DivX was a proprietary pay-per-view DVD format. You'd buy a DivX disc for about $4, which gave you 48 hours of viewing. After that, the disc would lock unless you paid additional fees to keep watching. The discs were disposable. You didn't have to return them to a rental store or worry about late fees like you did with Blockbuster. At the time, the concept actually made sense. Customers hated driving back to Blockbuster. They hated late fees. DivX promised convenience.
If you're tired of paying late fees for video rentals or paying for movies you didn't have time to watch, check out DivX at Circuit City.
Circuit City bet everything on this technology. They invested hundreds of millions of dollars. They partnered with major electronics manufacturers. They convinced Disney and Paramount to release movies on DivX. They built an entire infrastructure around this format, believing it would replace traditional DVDs. It was a spectacular disaster. Customers hated the restrictive model. The special DivX players cost $500, way more than regular DVD players, and required a phone line connection that felt invasive. Major retailers like Blockbuster refused to carry DivX discs because it threatened their rental business. Movie studios pulled support within a year. Circuit City lost $337 million on DivX before killing it in 1999. That's money they desperately needed as competition was heating up. But despite the DivX failure, Circuit City was still dominant. In 1999, they operated over 600 stores and generated $12 billion in revenue. Their stock price had increased 18,000% over 10 years. Behind the success, though, cracks were forming. And those cracks had a name: Best Buy. Best Buy was learning fast, and they were learning from Circuit City's biggest weakness: labor costs. While Circuit City paid commissioned salespeople $50,000 to $60,000 a year, Best Buy paid hourly wages, around $14 to $25 an hour, with no commissions. Best Buy's model was cheaper and, frankly, better suited for the internet age that was coming, because by the early 2000s, everything was changing. Customers were starting to research products online before coming to stores. They'd read reviews, compare specs, and show up knowing exactly what they wanted. The need for a commissioned expert to guide them through every purchase was fading. Circuit City's management saw this shift and panicked. In 2003, they made their first catastrophic decision: eliminate commissions entirely and switch everyone to hourly wages. Thousands of their best salespeople, the ones who built customer relationships, the ones who drove repeat business, were told to take massive pay cuts or leave. Most left. Customers noticed immediately. The friendly expert who helped you set up your home theater was gone, replaced by someone making $8 an hour who couldn't answer basic questions. Sales started declining. Customer satisfaction dropped. Best Buy pulled ahead. But instead of fixing the problem, Circuit City's management doubled down. And in 2007, they made a decision so unprecedented, so brutal, that it would become a case study in corporate self-destruction. Circuit City's leadership identified their highest-paid hourly workers, not executives, not corporate managers, but 3,400 salespeople, technicians, and department managers across the country. These were people who had survived the 2003 commission elimination, people who had been with the company for 10, 15, even 20 years. Circuit City's solution was simple: fire all of them, then post their jobs at lower wages and hire cheaper replacements. They called it a wage management initiative. On March 28, 2007, 3,400 Circuit City workers arrived for their shifts and were told they no longer had jobs. No warning, no severance beyond the legal minimum, just a cold, impersonal termination. But here's what made it truly unprecedented. Circuit City told these fired workers they could reapply for their old jobs in 10 weeks at significantly lower wages. Think about that. You've worked for a company for 15 years. You've built relationships with customers. You've trained new employees. You've turned down job offers from competitors because you were loyal, and now you're fired. But if you wait 10 weeks without income, you can come crawling back and beg for your old job at half the pay. Most refused. Circuit City's management defended the decision. They projected they would save $110 million annually. They told investors this would turn the company around and help them compete with Best Buy's leaner cost structure. They were catastrophically wrong. The effects were immediate and devastating. Customers walked into Circuit City stores and found chaos. The new employees didn't know the products, wait times were longer, questions went unanswered, returns were mishandled. The expertise that once separated Circuit City from Walmart was gone. Customer satisfaction scores plummeted. Sales dropped 7% in the next quarter, then 10%, then 15%. Meanwhile, Best Buy was thriving. And here's the twist: Best Buy hired many of Circuit City's fired employees. Think about the competitive advantage Best Buy gained. They got experienced workers who knew exactly how Circuit City operated, what mistakes they made, and what customers wanted. Best Buy didn't just win by default, they actively benefited from Circuit City's self-destruction. By mid-2007, Circuit City was in free fall. The $110 million in projected savings never materialized because revenue collapsed faster than costs could be cut. The company tried everything: flashy advertising campaigns, store redesigns, promotional sales. Nothing worked. The trust was broken. Customers had moved on to Best Buy, Amazon, and Walmart. By September 2008, Circuit City was burning through cash with no way to stop the bleeding. The financial crisis hit, credit markets froze, and suppliers demanded cash up front because they didn't trust Circuit City to survive. On November 10, 2008, just 18 months after firing those 3,400 workers, Circuit City filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The liquidation was brutal. 34,000 jobs disappeared. 567 stores closed. Billions in shareholder value evaporated. Entire shopping centers lost their anchor tenant. Communities lost jobs. And it all traced back to the day Circuit City decided that experienced, knowledgeable employees were too expensive to keep. Circuit City's downfall teaches us something business schools rarely cover. Your most expensive employees are often your most valuable assets. When Circuit City looked at their payroll in 2007, they saw costs. What they should have seen was decades of institutional knowledge, customer relationships, and competitive advantage. Yes, the internet was changing retail. Yes, customers were researching products online. But the solution wasn't to fire everyone who made the company valuable in the first place. Circuit City could have retrained their experienced staff for the internet age. They could have transitioned them into customer service roles, installation services, or tech support. They could have used their expertise to differentiate from Best Buy instead of trying to become a worse version of Best Buy. Instead, they chose the spreadsheet solution: cut costs, save money, boost short-term profits, and they destroyed themselves in the process. The executives who made this decision walked away rich. CEO Philip Schoonover received a $1.8 million severance package when he left in 2008. The 3,400 fired workers got nothing but a 10-week waiting period and an insulting job offer at lower pay. Best Buy didn't win because they had better products or lower prices. They won because Circuit City handed them the victory by destroying their own foundation. Today, CarMax, the side project Circuit City spun off in 2002, is now worth over $10 billion, more than Circuit City ever was at its peak. A company that revolutionized electronics retail, launched successful innovations like CarMax, and dominated for decades, destroyed in 18 months by a single spreadsheet decision. When you treat people as disposable line items, don't be surprised when your entire company becomes disposable too. If you found this story eye-opening, hit subscribe because there are a lot more stories like this that they don't teach you in school. See you next time.